I'd like to turn the program over now to Evan Junker, who's Chief Growth Officer at Spark 360, who's going to moderate our panel discussion and introduce our other panelists.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity to join you. As you mentioned, I'm Evan Junker. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Spark 360. And I'm going to ask the other panelists to introduce themselves. I'll just say that this research project kind of came about a year and a half ago. We kind of dreamed this up in working with App State University and coming up with a way to explore what we're seeing in terms of supply chain leadership, where they're seeing investments, where they're seeing the attitudes moving both in terms of supply chain optimization and sustainability programs. And it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to share this with, time with Jim and Dinesh from App State University and Mike from NIPO Group. And Dinesh, you want to come up next and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dinesh Dave, and I direct the supply chain management program in our College of Business at Appalachian State University.
Hey, my name is Jim Stoddard. I'm the chair of Marketing and Supply Chain Management in the Walker College of Business at App State.
And Mike?
Yep. First off, thank you, Dave, CSCMP, Spark 360, and Appalachian State University for bringing me into this roundtable. These are topics that are important to me, both personally and professionally for Knitwell Group. Within Knitwell Group, I wear a couple hats. One is I am the head of our parcel transportation network for e-com fulfillment as well as our store delivery footprint. The other hat that I wear is supply chain analytics lead across the supply chain. So that's all the way from the factory to our customers at our doorstep. So I get an opportunity to see quite a bit of things in our supply chain and our warehouse management. So it's again, really great to be part of this roundtable.
And we can move. There we go. And at this point, I'm going to turn this part over to Dinesh. You guys can kind of cover how this came about in terms of how you structured the survey.
Yeah, Jim Stoddard and I and Doug Morelli, we started working on the survey, and I will have Jim discuss the research methodology and what are the views of supply chain managers in the United States that we wanted to measure that, and we wanted to look at the familiarity of technology and the sustainability and other approaches. So Jim will discuss all the survey instruments and research methodology in detail.
Okay, so when you're looking at the diagram that's presented in front of you, you see that there's a target population. The target population is what I call the sampling frame. And the sampling frame in this case were supply chain managers in the United States. And we sampled 293 supply chain managers and asked them several questions about themselves, questions about their company, the company they work for, and questions about supply chain technology, supply chain sustainability, and supply chain optimization. So we thought that 293 surveys were really, really good sample size, good to work with, statistical validity, and so forth. So that's pretty much what the research methodology was. Let me go through a little bit of the descriptive statistics for the sample so that you get an idea of who's responding to the questions and the data that we're about to present. So the average number of years of experience that the supply chain manager sample reported was 10 years, about 10 years approximately, with a minimum experience level of 1 year and a maximum experience level of 35 years. We also asked them about what level in supply chain management they were within their companies. 6% reported being lower level supply chain managers. 56% were middle level supply chain managers, and 37% were upper level. So if you look at it from a more global perspective, about 93% of the sample reported either being in the middle level or the upper level of supply chain management. So we thought that was good. As far as the company size goes, we had about 30% of the companies report that their revenue in 2023, that's how we measured company size, was below $50 million, and 31% were below $249 million. 14% were between $449 million. And summing those statistics, you get about 77% of the sample that were below $449 million, which led us to conclude that they were pretty much small to medium-sized enterprises. As far as other firmographics go, industry company operated mainly in the manufacturing industry, followed by wholesaling and distribution, and then retailing. So those are the descriptive characteristics of the samples. Now this slide shows us what the responses to the question, how much money companies in the supply chain managers industry will be spending from their budgets on supply chain technologies in the next 3 to 5 years. The responses are on the left-hand side of this slide. And you can see that artificial intelligence, we had 293 responses. The mean was 3.4573, and the scale is at the bottom. So that's slightly more than a moderate amount that they're spending. And the other question was how much money companies in the industry should be spending on supply chain technologies in the next 3 to 5 years. And that data is on the right-hand side of the table. And so we're kind of, first of all, let me just go back and say, all of the different technologies that we measured are on the left side in the left column. So you can see those. We got that set of technologies by doing some research over the internet, and then also working with Spark 360, who advised us that some of the technologies we had listed were outdated, and they provided guidance to us as to which ones they were most interested in.
So if I can jump in here, Jim,
please do.
I kind of want to put some context to this, right? So if we're looking at some of these technologies, right, on the left hand, can we go to the next slide? Because this is the slide that we're on is fantastic for those of you in the academic world. This is the slide that kind of takes the same numbers and puts it in a visual that is a little more helpful for me, I think, and I hope you guys can understand what we're going at. The blue line is kind of that number, is the number of how much on a scale of 1 to 5 companies, individuals believe companies in their industry will be spending in the next 3 to 5 years. The green, the big bar that it's in, is how much these leaders believe they should be spending. Okay. And the thing that surprised me is that in every single category, the leaders believe they should be spending more than they think they will be spending. And that was a little bit surprising. Now, on the previous slide, you'll see that most of them were highlighted green, which basically means that it's statistically significant. That's, and the others are not statistically significant. They're greater, but not to a statistically significant amount. And the reason that is, and again, I'm sorry to whoever's running the slides, I apologize. The reason that is the ones that are not statistically significant are already at a very high level.
Right.
And so it's hard to have a statistically significant increase on something where, like artificial intelligence or supply chain visibility, like it's already so high, you can't really go much higher. And
That's
so, the main takeaway from this for me was, wow, across the board, whether it's sustainability or supply chain optimization, people are thinking they should be investing more than they think they are.
That's exactly right.
All right, we can go to the next slide, please.
So we also measured, after we measured what they will be spending and what they should be spending, we also asked them about their familiarity with the various supply chain management technologies that you see here. And I'll just summarize by telling you in rank order that supply chain visibility platforms people were most familiar with, followed by remote work and teleoperations, renewable energy, robotics, artificial intelligence, green technologies, predictive analytics, circular economy solutions, and decarbonization. So, I'm just reading those to you so you don't
And-
have to look
right,
at the numbers.
And if kind of a point here is this was a survey of supply chain managers in the United States.
Right.
So if you're looking at decarbonization and circular economy solutions and wondering why that might not be higher, there's no European survey going on here. There's no other, it's purely United States supply chain managers, where we're just not necessarily seeing the level of pressure on some of those yet.
Yeah, that's right. And
So
in fact, if you were to administer this survey to European Union companies, you would expect quite different results because they're more technologically forward than we seem to be in the United States.
And one thing we're gonna figure out as we continue to track this year after year is that artificial intelligence number. You'll see that a lot of people, that's actually middle of the pack towards the top of the pack in terms of familiarity.
It is.
And as we see technology adoption, we have different phases. I don't want to over geek out on this right now, but when you first start learning about something, you can believe you understand it. Okay. And then so you can rate yourself pretty high, and then you start to learn and you know what you don't know, and then maybe you're familiar with it, but you quickly realize that what I thought I knew last year was just the tip of the iceberg. So
Yeah.
I understand statistically this is a self-ranking of where people put themselves. I think as this is evolving, there's more to learn almost every day in terms of AI and how that's impacting our industry.
Yeah, these are supply chain manager beliefs.
Yeah.
So self-reported beliefs. Yeah.
And also, interestingly, when we cluster the data, and about 46% of these supply chain managers are very familiar with almost all technology. So that was very interesting and very encouraging.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we could parse the data and look at the results from all the survey questions, the responses from those that are relatively less familiar with SCM technology and those that were relatively more familiar with SCM technology. And that's where Dinesh ran that cluster analysis.
All right, if we can move on to the next slide. Oh,
Yeah,
the
so this-
collaboration one.
Yeah. So let's see. The graph on the left-hand side and the graph on the right-hand side are slightly different. What we're looking at here is the frequency the company collaborates with suppliers on the left-hand side on supply chain optimization initiatives, and on the right side on supply chain sustainability initiatives. And the numbers kind of speak for themselves. I think they look pretty good because if you sum, sometimes, often, and always, you get a very large majority. And so we are seeing a lot of collaboration with suppliers on supply chain optimization as well as supply chain sustainability initiatives.
Yeah. Excellent. Next slide, please.
Now, this is the same question, but this question, what we did in the study was we broke down the sample in a number of different ways. This slide shows us that we broke down the sample by company size. And so on the x-axis, you see company size in 2023 sales dollars, and the graphs represent the responses on a scale of 1 to 5. And you can see the response categories at the top of the slide. And so this is a little bit more complicated of an analysis than the previous slide was, but it gives you an idea that, pretty much up to $649 million, there's a linear relationship between the size of the company as measured in sales dollars and the degree to which they collaborate with suppliers on optimization and as well as supply chain sustainability. They're a little different from each other, but it's kind of a linear relationship. You get to companies that are over $650 million in sales revenue, and then we see that number dropping down.
I can speak for Knitwell on this. I really like this slide. Speaking personally from our company, the more we pop the hood and dig into both sustainability and optimization, the more we find that they're linked, right? And within our organization, we link everything, all of our initiatives to the P&L. So as we go through this, we find the more opportunity we find with sustainability, the more profitable we can become because we gain efficiencies. Further on down the line, we're seeing even improvements in customer experiences as well.
Yep, and I'll back that up. Both from a 3PL perspective and a manufacturer perspective, kind of across the board, green is green. It's still the math still adds up, and with some of the newer technologies and more advanced technologies coming on, you're able to find efficient ways of doing things which saves money, and it just so happens that efficiency also reduces greenhouse gas emissions. And we're finding companies find that magic spot where you're able to combine those.
Yeah, and I'll give one example. I'll try not to take too much time, but so one of the efficiencies we look at is from our e-com fulfillment. When a customer places an order for an order that has multiple units, we try to reduce the number of splits we do or fulfillment locations, right? So instead of sending 2 packages, we try to optimize our inventory to send 1 package from 1 location. So definitely reduces our footprint, but from a customer experience standpoint, she's getting 1 package, not multiple across multiple days, right? If I go further on down the line, we've found correlations between the number of packages she gets and the probability that she will return the merchandise, right? So again, as we peel the onion a little bit, we find all these little nuances within our customer experience that really drive a lot of efficiencies in cost reduction.
That's really cool. I'm trying to think of an example, I guess, from a 3PL perspective. Yeah, that's a great example from a shipper side. From a 3PL perspective, I would say kind of an example would be the reduction of empty backhaul miles, right? Something of that nature, figuring out how you can optimize routes around delivery schedules so you can reduce that. And if something like 38% of miles are going to be empty, and you can reduce that number a lot. Just studying it, looking at it, figuring out where you can, work with your partners to bring those numbers down. And that, again, that reduce your costs, to reduce less drivers, less gas. At the same time, you're reducing your carbon footprint. Yep. If we can go to the next slide, please. Oh yeah, this is another interesting one, and I'll just kind of cover this quickly. We asked people what they believe drivers are important in terms of sustainability, or how important the main 6 drivers of sustainability are to them. And the 6 that are generally batted around are government regulations, improved reputation of the brand, environmental action, improved financial evaluation, demand of customers, or recruitment of young talent. And so those are the main 6. And I was kind of curious as to which ones they felt were really motivating them to work on sustainability, and which ones weren't as important. I was surprised that all 6 of them came up as extremely important or very important with the majority of respondents. There's a little flip on customer demand as to whether that's extremely important versus very important, but all the others came in with 1, 2 as very important, followed by extremely important. So none of them showed up as a majority or even close to a majority of not important or only slightly important. These were all 6 drivers are having an impact in terms of how people view sustainability.
Yes, and I'll just report the rank order of importance. It turns out that the respondents said that the demand of customers was the most important driver, followed by compliance with government regulations, improved brand reputation, recruitment of young talent, and increased awareness of the need to take environmental actions. So, environmental actions. So those are kind of like the rank orders of the various drivers of sustainability. Thought it was really interesting, especially from my perspective, because I'm running the Department of Marketing and Supply Chain Management. And it shows you that customers have a big influence on the kinds of things that they want their supplier to do. And not only that, but if you're going to go all the way to the end user, which happens to be consumer, consumers are pretty savvy with respect to sustainability issues. And so, it can also be used as a marketing tool.
All right, next slide, please. I think this is the payback period. Yeah. And
Yeah,
this one was another interesting one. And nearly half of the respondents believed it would take 3 to 4 years or 5 to 6 years or never in terms of their ROI to recoup those investments. In terms of sustainability, and I can imagine that in that perspective of the longer term, 3 to 6 years, was probably thinking of capital expenditures from CapEx investments. As Mike and I were talking earlier about examples where people can, while doing sustainability initiatives, also be reducing expenses, making things run more efficiently. We're seeing a lot of opportunity in the real world where people are able to get their payback in 9 months or less in a lot of cases through pure optimization, where it's a sustainability combined with optimization, sometimes combined with resiliency, and all three of them at the same time, with a very fast payback period. A lot of new technologies are enabling that, and you combine some of the technologies with lean, and you're able to do that pretty quickly. Mike, are you seeing anything in the field that kind of relates to this?
Yeah, for sure. And I will say we've seen paybacks in two different ways. One is strategic, right? So that probably does require some capital investment, either in technologies and or equipment. But locally, we see a lot of it as well. So we do find the efficiency in two ways. One, we look at data. The other, we do observations or interviews. So in our distribution, in our warehouses, we go back and look to see how we're packing merchandise and how we're receiving it. We have a team of engineers, and we've brought some in from third parties to look how we're getting merchandise from our suppliers. And here's one example. So Knitwell is a collection of women's specialty retailers. So we have Ann Taylor, Talbot's, Chico's, the whole gamut. We were very interested in seeing how we packed some of our more delicate merchandise. So our bras, for example, we had an engineer just spend a few days looking at stuff. We found out we probably were using a little bit too much packaging. So we were able to reduce that pretty quickly and still maintain the integrity of the merchandise, right? So we weren't creating any creases or anything that would drive a return. So very locally, we spend a lot of time just looking and watching stuff because sometimes the data is great. Sometimes the data doesn't really give you the insight to what's happening on a day-to-day basis, because we have so many different processes, in our warehouses and within our stores. Just looking at stuff, we find stuff almost every day.
Very cool.
The good news about this slide, from my perspective, is that if you take payback periods less than 1 year, 1 to 2 years, and 3 to 4 years, 78% of the sample is reporting that incremental time period. So payback periods 4 years for sustainability initiatives is really good news. The numbers are really good. I have a feeling, I don't know this because I haven't done any research on it, but if companies were more aware of the short payback periods of their sustainability initiatives, they might be more receptive to initiating some of these technologies.
And additionally, if they advertise that we are becoming leader in sustainability, so like Jim said earlier, that consumers, especially younger consumers, they are more inclined to favor the product. So there are so many benefits that how can we use this kind of statistics. One thing I would like to mention that, when we are talking about 293 survey, because we did some statistical test and internal validity, etc., that came out to be very impressive. So we can really implement some of the solutions. So I just wanted to interject that.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, next slide, please.
Hey, Evan, there's a question in the chat as well.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if you guys have questions, please just type them in the chat and we'll pull them in and bring them up.
Yeah, we have.
And we can cover, the breakdown of industries and whatnot. I know Jim and Dinesh have a whole set of cross tabs of all the different statistics of which industries and size of company and all that stuff, and we'll certainly do that towards the
I
end.
could speak to that.
Yeah.
35% of the respondents were from manufacturing industry, 22% wholesaling and distribution, and 15% logistics service providers, 10% retailing. And I got those industry categories from the North American Industrial Classification System. And then we broke those down into even more finer discriminations, but they're not reported in this presentation.
And if anybody, Leticia, I see you asked that question. If you or anybody else has questions about the specific data pieces, please feel free to email me afterwards. I'm happy to discuss the specific data splices, and if you want to look at a subset, the more detailed you get on the subset. If you want, companies whose names begin with a vowel under 50 million a year in revenue, who have purple in their logo, like, depending on how specific you want, it might not be statistically relevant, but we can look at the data at whatever subset you're interested in. I'm happy to do that with you. Shoot me an email. And if anybody else has questions, please feel free to type them. We have a few, pre-submitted questions here. How are recent political shifts, tariffs, and economic uncertainty impacting companies' investment in sustainability or supply chain optimization? That's kind of a loaded question, but that's I think everybody's mind, right? Like, what are we going to invest in with everything going on? We have political shifts around the world. We have, of course, everybody has been following the tariff situation. We have wars going on. We have trade disruptions and the threat of trade disruptions. We're seeing a slight pullback in terms of pure sustainability investment, but there's a much more increased investment level looking at supply chain optimization, which has a sustainability component to it. The era of just in time is kind of over, though. It's really more an era of just in case, right? People are planning for building resilience into their supply chains. The good thing is there's now technology to help do that, and combining things like lean combined with some of the new AI technologies, and we're really excited about digital twin as a tool to implement a lot of these in terms of scenario planning, risk management, and rapid response to disruptions. We're seeing that in all of those areas be implemented. And one thing I was talking to someone the other day, and we were discussing AI and its impact and why people are starting to invest. The next time we have a recession, it will be the first recession in the AI era. And if you think about that, think about all of the financial companies, think about all the investment firms, think about all the companies that are from the vendors and suppliers all the way to the investment firms that own the stock in companies. If you think about the impact that AI is going to have on how companies react, those that aren't investing are going to be swallowed up. If people are not integrating these tools into their strategies, when we talk about companies going under or mergers and acquisitions, these are going to be the bottom fish that get eaten up, because these tools are being deployed, and those that know how to not just deploy them, but deploy them in a way that helps them build resilience and efficiency into their systems, those are the ones that are going to come out ahead. So they have immediate impacts in terms of dealing with risks, geopolitical risks, and so on. And they have long-term impacts in terms of building long-term resiliency and strategy. So that's what I would say we're seeing a lot of now. It's kind of a shift from pure investment on sustainability or pure investment on supply chain optimization, and now we're seeing optimization and resiliency combined with sustainability as kind of a subset or added benefit.
Yeah, but I'd say you're spot on. Like personally for Knitwell, we've spent a lot of time just talking about business continuity, right? If tariffs go up in this country, can we still source the same product from another or a different factory? The thing that we've learned through all this uncertainty is it is certain that there will be uncertainty. So our ability to pivot has really uncovered a lot of inefficiencies that we've had, not only in supplier base, but even with basic inventory management, right? So again, our motto here is, I think that the saying is, never waste a good crisis. So we try to take a bit of learning from every one of these mini crises that we have. And every time we do it, we do come out much more resilient, much more confident that we can move along with our customer expectations.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Next
all
slide,
of
please.
these environmental factors are going to have a huge impact on demand, and so demand planning obviously is become at the forefront of a lot of what these technologies can be useful for.
Absolutely, and it's going to become more and more important, especially what European countries are doing in terms of sustainability and all that. So I think if we really implement some of the strategies using some of the data would be very, very valuable.
Yep.
Excellent. Next slide, please. Now, what are some of the current examples of collaboration between supply chain optimization and sustainability? You want to start us off, Mike?
Yeah, I think I've given the example of managing splits, right? So that's a huge cost reduction in our space. We've also invested quite a bit in automation. We have approximately 150 robots here in our Columbus facility that helps with packing. So what does that really mean? It means the humans who were doing the packing can now take a step back and we can observe. We can make sure things are efficient and we can program the robots to be much more efficient, which obviously leads again to a better customer experience. It helps us with our labor strategy, managing costs there. And again, the materials costs, right? We're packing things more densely. And I think, Evan, you brought the example of a 3PL. We do the same thing with our store fulfillment, right? We try to get as many units in the same package as we can for that store when we're fulfilling it. And we try to pack every truck to the brim, without compromising the integrity of the packages, right? So that's stuff that we look at all the time. And again, the data is really the key here. Those give us our first alerts. So every night when we ship, we look at that data and we see if we need to make a change or if we need to divert efforts to our robots. So what I'm learning here through this Climate Risk and Sustainability Committee that I sit on here at Knitwell is we're really blending both the sustainability and the optimization together. We're starting to build that into our DNA. So we're thinking of it together. Not if I would have had this conversation a year ago, I'd probably say we had more of a federated thought process. Now we're joining the two together, right? Which is making we're getting a lot of momentum on both fronts by thinking of it that way.
Excellent. Thank you. Next slide, please. What are some specific examples of technology you see have an impact on supply chain optimization, supply chain operations? I'll head this one off. I'll start this one off. I'm going to go back to what I was talking about earlier, digital twin, and I'll tell you why. It has applications across the spectrum. And, from the warehouse floor to the boardroom, these kinds of tools are what's allowing people to respond. One, gain visibility across all aspects of their operations, and two, do scenario planning. And I kind of describe it as like war games. If you think of it either from a military aspect of running scenario planning Or even if you, some of us may remember the movie in the 1980s, the war games where they're doing the simulations and he's playing against the computer, right? These tools will take your data and create a digital version of it and allow you to run those scenarios to reduce your risk, to identify optimization opportunities, to identify your sustainability footprint, your carbon footprint, to do all of the different applications you could want in real time, in any time you want. And so both from a risk management perspective, but also a response perspective of being able to adjust rapidly to changing environments, and in some cases even automate that response. So you're not having to, it doesn't automatically just send an email to somebody saying, hey, deal with this. The system can actually make the response or make the changes that it needs to make by itself. So I would say if we're looking at technologies that are having a direct impact on supply chain operations, that would be at the top of my list. There's other examples, but that's certainly one that is a tool that has multiple applications, both in the near and long term.
Yeah, but being able to have that sort of lab to run scenarios has helped us quite a bit. And really, it helps in a number of ways. One, we can test, virtually, but also helps us build business cases for capital investments, that we would need. Very basically, we would say, here's the frequency that this inefficient thing happens. If we extrapolate it to a full year, here's what that's worth in terms of a savings. And then just like any other business case, we match that up against what it would cost to purchase a new belt in our line, so we can fix some of those errors. And it's been very successful with us. But again, having that data in a tool like you mentioned really helps run those different scenarios, so we can be really credible when we're creating these business cases.
It is quickly becoming kind of an adopted standard. Companies that are using these tools are going to be the ones that are successful in the long run. If I don't know how long it's going to be, but the era of pumping everything out into Excel spreadsheets and having 5 people add things into it, and then everybody sits in a room and you take a few weeks, a lot of emails, and discuss the data, and then that's just not going to work for companies that want to remain competitive. They are going to have to use these tools at some point. And in some cases, when we go into companies and help them work with these tools, you discover where you have data gaps, where you have data blind spots, where you have bad data, So it's also helping in terms of making other decisions and better decisions and making them faster. Let's put it that way. All right, next slide, please. All right, how can smaller companies modernize their supply chain teams when they lack resources of larger global organizations? Mike, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would say, I've worn a few hats here within Knitwell and other organizations. I started off in finance, and now I run a supply chain organization. What's really helped me for any company I've worked for is just following the dollar through the P&L, and that really helps you understand where efficiencies can be gained. I would say have a very curious nature about yourself. We really encourage asking questions, collaboration, spending time with each other, rotate jobs, all those sorts of things, regardless of the size of the company. It's been pretty successful for me in my career. So, but again, with us, we're a collection of multiple brands that we've gained through acquisition. So I get that opportunity every time we bring in on a smaller brand. I just ask questions, I observe, I tweak, and I try to socialize.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also I'd like to interject and just say, current college graduates
Right.
are very aware of sustainability issues and tend to gravitate toward companies that are actually implementing sustainability issues because they've been it's been beat into their heads for years and years and years that sustainability is important. So when you're thinking about recruiting young talent, there is that soft ROI that you don't really think about very often,
Right.
with respect to recruiting new talent into the workforce.
And also when we are talking about globally, and when we check the challenge globally. I mean, the collaboration that universities are having with other study abroad and other programs, plus a lot of exchanges, etc. So that is also going to help significantly.
Um, Great points, great points. And Mike, I want to kind of go back to what you're talking about. You're talking about talking with people and asking questions. And one of the things smaller companies that are working on, modernizing their supply chain teams can always look at is lean, right? Lean, in my mind, is a great equalizer. Eliminating waste, maximizing value, building problem-solving skills into kind of everyday interactions. And whether you're developing, SWIs or doing Kaizen events or, whatever you're doing, all of those things help to make things more efficient, help to, continuous improvement for your organizations and optimize your systems, but it also trains your people along the way. So if you're looking for a way to equalize with the big boys, I would say, smaller companies should definitely look at lean and how you can and use that. We do that with clients all the time. Some of the first things we do is we work on how do we, eliminate waste and get them up to a good starting point using lean. Next slide, please. What's been your most effective strategy for getting cross-functional buy-in when implementing new digital tools or analytics dashboards? That's kind of a loaded question. And we see that a lot too, right? I would say that the buy-in, the first thing to do when trying to get buy-in is make sure you have everybody at the table at the beginning. It's a lot harder to get buy-in if you're 2/3 of the way through or most of the way through and you're telling somebody that they're going to be using it or they're going to be responsible for providing data for it or something of that nature. Having the conversations at the beginning, explaining the value to the company and to hopefully to their aspect is critical. And making sure that those questions are asked. And I'm talking about lean and talking to people, and Mike was talking about asking questions, but make sure that when you're implementing a tool that you've done the research in the background and asked the questions, know what the tool is supposed to do, why, who's involved, and start at the beginning. Because if you get it right at the beginning and you have the right people with the right input, it's going to be a lot easier to get buy-in.
Yeah, I think the buy-in process is definitely critical. It's with us, we try to link everything to an EBITDA impact that we'll all benefit from. And as we socialize these sort of tools, we have to be transparent as well, right? Some folks, their processes might change a little bit, so we have to walk them through that change management piece, because you may have folks who have done the same process and use the same tools for a while, and they will need some extra handling just to walk them through that. So, and I think seeing that all the way through, yeah, definitely helps. But you're right, absolutely right. The buy-in up front is really what's going to drive the initiative from a strategic standpoint.
All right, next slide, please. Oh, I think I'm checking the chat to see if there's any other questions that are popping in. I don't see any, so if anybody has them, go ahead and pipe them in. And I am not the person that's going to speak to this slide, so I hope somebody else has information on Edge. This I can speak to. That QR code will take you to a web page where you can download the kind of summary, the executive summary of the survey that we've talked about today. We also should, in the next month or so, have the 2025 follow-up survey, which will be exciting because not only will it have data from this year, but it will be able to start looking at trends and specific examples of how geopolitical shifts and whatnot have impacted the respondents' opinions on things. So please go there, sign up, download a copy, and you will get notified when the new version is out. And then I yield the floor back to Dave or whoever wants to take it from here.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. Yeah.
So thank you, Evan. Thank you, panel. Guys, great job.
We got a question. If we still have a couple minutes, I'd love to dive into a question from the chat. Is that okay?
No, absolutely.
Okay. So the question is, I mentioned that companies shouldn't rely on Excel for future. Can I be more specific on what that should be replaced by? And I'm going to open this up to my other panelists here for a response too. But I would say just foundationally, it depends on what you're trying to do and what, what the application is. Right now, Excel is used for way too many applications within the supply chain industry, in my opinion. But we now have the ability, a lot of software is driven by APIs, so we can link in through a lot of tools that we use to the actual data source, and then run algorithms, then run a dashboard where you can see the data and it can interact with multiple systems. And from your vendors to your in-house operations, you can see all of that and apply it. And there's pretty much a tool for almost everything at this point. We've reached the point in technology where almost every day, if there's a demand or somebody wants to do something and they're wondering, how can we do this without using Excel? There's somebody that's already developed a solution for that. And so it's not necessarily what it should be replaced by, but just identifying what's out there. Of course, there's a value proposition to it. But identifying which tool is best to fit the need that you're looking for. Some of the tools, like I said, the digital twins, and we work with, I think, 3 or 4 digital twin providers, depending on the application that's needed. But the good thing about systems like that is that it can be applied in a multitude of ways. Like I said, whether you're doing risk planning and reduction, or you're doing optimization, or you're doing sustainability reporting, it's a system where you can pull your data in and be able to see it and act on it without human error, without taking human time to update them, and in a way that will allow you to see and respond without having to notice. Like, the problem with Excel sheets is when data changes, you don't necessarily know that, oh, that's a problem, until somebody updates the spreadsheet. But with these systems, if they're able to link to your data directly and create a dashboard, it can flash red. It can send you an email. It can make a phone call. It can call you on your phone, or it can automatically take action without waiting for you to look at something or update a spreadsheet. Mike, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you said everything I would say. I'll just add a few comments here. I think you're right, Evan. The right tool for the right job is important. Excel, in reality, it's always going to be part of our world. What we've discovered is we previously used to use the wrong tool for the wrong job. So we think about it in a couple of different ways. There's data management, right? So we have specific, I'll get kind of technical, but SQL databases where we house tens of millions of records, right? It's perfect for that. Then we put a business intelligence tool on top of that to create all the alerts that you mentioned, right? So every morning when I come in and I log in, or I can get them on my phone, I see a series of red, yellow, green, and I know what to react to very quickly. When we converted that stuff from Excel, we found that exactly what you said. We were using Excel for data management, which gets kind of scary, right? You end up putting 2 data elements in the same field, for example. You only have a limited amount of records, so you create multiple files and you're trying to consolidate all these. You're trying to use Excel as a data management tool and a presentation tool and an analytic tool. So there's a number of different applications, but I think when you take a step back and think holistically how you need to look at your data, it really comes down to a couple things: data management, and then metadata on top of that, and then finally what you want the front end to be for whatever user. It could be an email, it could be a summary Excel sheet, or a business intelligence tool that they can go and play with. Again, I think everybody here has our contact information. I'd be happy to pop the hood on what we do. We do a ton of it. We're still growing. We're always learning, but we've come a long way in just the past few years.